Canvas, on the assumption that you don't already have your Canvas sort of bookmarked or whatever, you can always get to where you want to go by going to the Pierce College homepage and then clicking on Pierce Online, and then we click on the portal. And then we log in on the assumption that I haven't typed it. Okay, so I go to Canvas, and then you'll see, as I do, your dashboard, right? So when you log in, you will see a blue icon with some notation. And this is actually part of notation that we're going to learn together. So you're going to want to click on that. And let me go ahead and get rid of all the junk so that you're not plagued by it. All right, so this is our hub for the course. So even though we meet twice a week and we do a lot of work together in class, there's some stuff that you are going to complete either on Canvas or through Canvas. And it's also the case that you will access your syllabus and certain documents, okay? So what I'd like to do today is just run through an overview of the course logistics. Then we can get to know each other a little bit. We can talk a bit about what's involved in the course. And I hope, fingers crossed, start to make some connections between what you're studying at the college and what we're doing in this course. Here's one of the great things about philosophy, and lots of times people will say that symbolic logic is the sort of outlier in the discipline because it's the only course where you do the sort of work that we do, rephrase. It's the only work that we do in philosophy like exclusive to symbolic logic, unless you're working at a certain technical level. So most people will say, well, logic isn't philosophy. You know, philosophy, you do loads of reading and loads of writing, and you know, you're thinking about all sorts of abstract concepts and problems and so forth. And logic is much more like this sort of machinery of thought. That said, like every other course in philosophy, it doesn't matter what your major is. There is a way to connect what we're doing in philosophy with what you do. Okay, so here's how I've laid out the course. On your far left, and please tell me if you can't see this. I think I can make the picture bigger. Yeah. Okay, and I'm looking specifically, I'm like diagonally across here. On the far left, the ribbon of icons, I can't change those. Those I think are just standard for the college. But then the links, those I customize for us. And so first, you know, we're on our homepage, and you'll see the syllabus. You'll see our work laid out in terms of various assignments. This conferences link, we'll talk more about that later. That's what our course embedded tutor uses. I think that we still have our amazing Lindsay Lazo as our course embedded tutor, and she uses conferences for her meetings. We'll talk more about that in a bit. Then you see 3 links for meeting online. So yes, I have regular office hours and I want to see you, but let's suppose that you want to meet with me and my office hours and your schedule coincide, but for whatever reason you can't be on campus. You click on the relevant link and you will be taken to the conference page. And the conference page is just a link to a program called Zoom. It's like FaceTime or Skype. If you haven't used it before, it's actually a really lovely program. And you can either meet with me within the Zoom browser window, or you can download it and put it on your phone, put it on your home computer, whatever. Okay? And then, of course, there's the library. Whoa, that's so sorry. I'm so excited. But just so you know, I was born before there was even a VHS machine. So this is really cool. Okay, so anyway, okay. I'm really easily amused too. So anyway, other stuff like, grades. And then if you don't already know it, we have access to Office 365, the whole Microsoft Office suite, as well as cloud savings. So, take advantage of that. Okay, now, I can't get over this. This is so awesome. Okay. You and I are going to go over the course videos involving course logistics, but again, they're there if you need them. Let me just scroll through really quickly how our schedule is laid out, and then we'll talk more of the nuts and bolts of course logistics. So there are some resources. We can talk more about those. I hope you take advantage of all manner of college resources for you because you pay student fees, and so you have access to all sorts of healthcare resources. You have access, let's say if you're a veterans resources. There's just a ton of stuff that you can take advantage of, and I hope you will. Okay, so now we'll come back to this link, the Open Proof website link. This is what's connected with the textbook and software that we're going to use for the course. And then there are a bunch of tutorials on the programs we're going to use. And then class resources. I'm going to come back to this later. Suffice it to say, the resources include additional practice, retests, lecture notes, things like that. So this is all aimed at aiding your success in the course. Speaking of success in the course, word to the wise, if I can do this, anybody can. So, at the moment you're feeling the most miserable about things, and you probably will, that's just a side benefit. Just remember, oh, Mia passed this course, Mia can do it. Heck, she even teaches the course. So if I can do it, you can do it. Okay, it's just a matter of being diligent. We'll talk more about that. All right, and then we have a list of our e-exams. We have a discussion forum for asking questions of our tutor. Also general questions. So for example, let's say you're working on something, it's 3 a.m, you know that I'm probably already like totally in my cups, and so I'm not sober enough to have a conversation, or I'm asleep. And so you post a question on the discussion forum, and one of your colleagues answers the call, or then I answer the next day, whatever, right? It's there for you to use. Then as you keep scrolling, week, right? So like a regular schedule, our stuff is laid out week by week. Week 1, week 2, week 3, and so forth. So let's take a look at, really quickly, week 1, where, and every week is laid out the same way, you'll see, it's essentially a version of our syllabus, right? You'll see the topics we're going to cover. Below that, the readings that you want to complete. And then, like I said before, at least I think I said that they're optional, but videos that you may find helpful, you may not, right? My thinking is, even at the risk of overwhelming you, if I give you kind of everything, but I tell you what these things are, then, you're the best judge of what works for you and what doesn't, right? You might say, oh, I really want to go over this concept. I'm just going to watch this video. Or you might say, I don't like these videos. They're lame. I'm just going to read the book. Whatever it is, right? You'll find what works for you. And then you get to the allegedly important stuff. And I say allegedly because I know you're here to learn. You're not worried about scores. But you get the items that you need to complete for a given week. Okay? So we'll come back to items to complete this week in a moment. In the meantime, if we go back, you guys probably already know this. Oh, it's up here, I guess. Go ahead and cast your eyeballs to the far right of the screen, and you'll see upcoming stuff to do. What I do not recommend you do is just rely on those reminders. Because it could be the case that, we've maybe made some sort of adjustment in our schedule, but I haven't yet made a settings adjustment, or, you're focusing on the stuff that you have to complete, but if you just focus on that and you don't look at, let's say, the readings, or you might not know that, there's great material in the readings, right? So make sure that you go into a given week if you want to know for sure what we're doing, okay? All right, so before moving on, is everybody comfortable with the idea that a lot of the stuff that you're going to use for this course, you're going to find on our Canvas site, right? So, I usually, will print out syllabi, and I will print you out a copy of the syllabus if you want it. But in order to, capitalize on our digital technology, I just throw the syllabus up on the website, and you can find it there. You are? Rashid, what are you thinking?
Quick question.
Yeah.
What if we can't access the Canvas quite yet? Is there a way to get to that?
Yeah.
It's not open yet.
Not published yet.
Oh.
Okay, thank you.
No, nobody.
I don't see this.
Yeah, good catch, guys. Let's fix that now, shall we? Are you ready to watch the magic? Okay, here we go. Publish. I meant to do that last night. Yeah, so like I said, a couple of you know me. Am I right to say this is like normal, right? You're not, yeah. Okay. Matthew's like, yeah, this is normal. So it's not like I'm selling you a false bill of goods, like I'm saying, hey, this is going to be awesome. No, this is kind of what you get all the time. Which reminds me, so thank you, Rashid. If you, and you noted that none of us can see the course. You are? Elizabeth. So thanks, Rashid. Thanks, Elizabeth. Here's a really important, in all seriousness, point to make. If you think something looks wonky, right, it's probably me having messed something up. So I would love to come back to you rather, and say, and I will, oh, no, I didn't mess up, you messed up. But I would say that the vast majority of the time, if something looks weird, it's because I messed up. So don't be shy about saying, hey, Mia, this looks weird. Because if it's not me and it's you, we can figure that out. And if it's me, I can fix it. See, easy. Okay. Yeah, so we've got the second sort of a corollary to the mantra. No, it's not a corollary. It's a second mantra. If something looks weird, tell Mia. Okay, so anything else so far, aside from being able to see the thing? Okay, so it's published now?
Well, I haven't gotten the living, but I'll...
Oh, but you, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so let's pop back to our syllabus. So, here's the boilerplate syllabus, right? This is what the course is about. This is what our outcomes are, blah, blah, blah. What I want to focus on is, first, our textbook. Now, I am painfully, I think, aware of how expensive books are, right? And I love me some books. I'm a paper sort of gal. And if I have money, I spend it on books by and large, and beer. But the point is, I know that it's really expensive, and so I do not lightly require a textbook. So I'm hoping that I can sell you on the good reasons for us having the textbook that we have. Here's a paper copy of it. It's the second edition of Language, Proof, and Logic. We're going to go to the website today so you can see where you can either purchase the paperless package, the digital stuff, or the paper package. You can also purchase the paper package if you want that, if you prefer that, at a bookstore, including ours. Doesn't matter to me. Some people, though, just so you know, if they buy the paperless package, they will, print out, if they like looking at, having a paper copy, they'll print out, various chapters or whatever. But so this textbook gives us a version of the standard system that we learn in this sort of course. So it doesn't really matter whether you're, here at Pierce, or you're at Moorpark College, or you're at UCLA, or you're across the coast in, I don't know, Boston College, whatever. What we're covering is the standard for a course like this. That is, we're covering material that we all learn in a lower division logic course. The version of the system that we're going to learn is great because when you master this system, doesn't matter what logic book you pick up, you'll be able to grasp what's happening. What I'm going to say, the emphasis on strategic thinking is pretty intense with this book, which makes other systems seem other versions of the system seem like simple by comparison. Okay, so we need to have this book because there are exercises in the book, and we'll look at them and we'll look at some samples in just a second. Exercises in this book that are paired with specific programs that we will use to learn logic, to submit exercises as part of our coursework, okay? So a couple of things to say about the programs. One is that they, in my view, do a really, really good job of getting at what are often pretty difficult skills to learn. They also help us by providing, at least one does, and one program anyway, helps us by providing us this really neat set of visuals for us to wrap our heads around certain concepts in logic. And unlike licenses from like the My series, like the My Math Lab, My Spanish Lab, My Chem Lab, I don't know, what have you guys done? Do you know that series that I'm talking about?
Yes.
The My something. You know how your license expires? Never. I know. It never expires. So once you have the programs, and really what you're buying ultimately is access to this remote grading program, you can come back indefinitely, right? So let's say, you're getting ready to go to law school, or you're trying to break some I don't know, you're working for whoever it is that made the Iowa application, the Iowa Democratic primary application. You want to find out where that went wrong, and you got to brush up on some of your logic. So you work some logic, and then let's say it's like 10 years from now, I don't know, and you submit your exercises. You're basically buying access to this remote program, and the license never expires. Okay, so it's great. Remind me, I'll tell you now, but remind me to tell you again that because your license never expires, use your private information, right? So instead of using your Pierce or your LACCD email address when you key the thing, you'll want to use whatever email you plan to keep forever and ever, okay? All right, so this textbook comes with programs. More on that in just a little bit. We have, in connection with the exercises in the book, a set of electronic exams where all you're doing is submitting exercises that presumably you will have completed already because you're practicing a lot. This is a skills-based course. And so you'll submit those. You'll submit those as preparation for in-class assessments. And we've got 4 e-exams, 4 in-class exams. And then we have some reading quizzes that are meant to get you to interact with the text so that you're familiar with technical terms that we'll be using so that you understand how to use certain concepts in this environment. Okay? And that's it as far as assessments go. And then once again, I don't like the way this ends up laying out on Canvas, but this is a version of the weekly schedule that you just saw when we were back on the homepage. If you, like I said, if you want a hard copy of the syllabus, just let me know. I'll print you off a copy. I can also post a PDF of it if you want a different look. Okay, so let's back out. It's so much fun. Okay. All right, so before moving on, how are we doing with so we know when we meet. We know that we've got a textbook. We know that we're going to complete exercises using programs associated, sorry, rephrase. We're going to complete exercises that are in the textbook, but we complete them using programs that are basically keyed to those exercises. More on that in a little bit. And then we submit those exercises not only as practice, but we submit them as part of our course score. And then we have some reading quizzes that you will complete on Canvas. Rashid, what are you thinking?
So if you buy the book online, it's not the same as, do you need like a physical copy?
You do not.
Okay, so if I get the book online, it's okay.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
The only thing you don't want to do is buy a used copy where you 99% of the time won't get the programs that go with it. Because remember, when you buy the book and the programs that go with it, those end up getting, there's a license that comes with the program and that gets keyed to you. So somebody else may say, oh, I sold the book, great, but I mean, I posted a PDF of the book on Canvas. So like you have the access to the book. Yeah, we know each other. Yeah, how are ya? I haven't seen you in a while. Good to see you.
I remember when I took this class last time, I think that's what you said, we could buy the program separately, right?
Well, so here's the thing, when you buy what's the paperless package, I'll show you what comes with it, everything comes with it.
I remember I had the program but never had the book.
Oh, well then hey, how'd you do that?
That's what I'm wondering. Because you took us to a website
Yeah.
that the programs are on.
Yeah.
I bought that came with the program, so I have the book, right?
That's all you need. Yeah, good. What else, Matthew, what are you thinking?
Can we also download the book on Canvas too?
Yes, but in order to complete the aforementioned exercises,
Oh, you need a program.
yeah. So here's, again, once you look around on the website we're about to go to, you're going to make up your minds about how you want to proceed with purchases, but at least know what your options are, okay? So it's called the Open Proof website. I just always call it the LPL website because it's the website that has all of our language proof and logic stuff, right, associated with it. So let me tell you a little bit about who and what this is. The who is some philosophers and computer science dudes and dudettes at, let's see, I think now they're all at Stanford, maybe also at Berkeley. The first iteration of this book came out like in the 90s, I'm pretty sure, and I saw the original programs and stuff. And then unfortunately one of the authors died, the other one is still around, and then they got funding to be able to update the book and the programs and so forth. And so it's a pretty robust system. Some of you guys are going to say at some point, gosh, why are they making the programs work this way? Or for example, like you're used to the following, I think, you're used to going to an, I say application, I know they call it app, but it's an application. It's a program. Anyway, you go to the application store and you download something and it automatically installs, right? Well, with this, you download and you install it, right? So you might say, why, these guys are smarty pants. Why don't they have an auto install? I don't know, or if they do, I don't know about it. But in any event, this is our, can we do that? No, we can't. Whatever. We can?
It is zooming.
Yeah, you just do it
I did?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's very lightly.
Okay. Oh, okay. Good. Okay. So here's our book. You can do this. You can go up to buy, right? And now let's take a look. So this is what we've got. So $55 all in for life, $80 all in for life, and for life means your license or your registration is indefinite, right, for that remote program. And I'm pretty sure the remote program is on a server at University of Chicago. Anyway, so you click here, you click on purchase, and then you decide which one you want. If it's the paperless package, let's say it is, right, it'll give you all the info that you want. And then if I'm not mistaken, because it's been years since I've done it, once you do all this stuff, your first name, last name, the email that you want to tie, I think you can change it if it within like 30 days or whatever, and maybe even after that if you ask them. But the email with to which you want to tie the license, and then you pay for it, and then I think they email you your code, and then once you're in, right? So let me do this real quick. Once you've done all this stuff, let's see if I can remember my password. Any typo? I don't think so. Okay. So one thing you can do is this. I am going to confess that I don't always find, similarly to the Google platforms, not the navigation of which does not strike me as intuitive. Sometimes navigation here doesn't strike me as intuitive. Anyway, so I've logged in. You can see all my old courses. I got to get ours set up. Support. No. So hold on, let's see. I'll go back to mine. I think, so once you log in, oh, I'm a dork. Look, far left, downloads, online course materials. So I believe it's the case that, you get sent your confirmation email, and then you register, and then you just download, right? So every time they have a new version of one of their programs, you can download it if you want, right? So that's how this works. And I don't know, I'm one of those people who doesn't have the mental space to understand all the sort of the backbone of this stuff. I just use the computer. So you'll know, like, you're like, oh, Linux, this is cool. I can break stuff apart. Or, you basically, you download what you think you're going to use. You can download the stuff onto a flash drive, right? And carry the flash drive around with you if you're mobile, but you don't have a machine to take with you, right? If I'm not mistaken, we don't yet have the usability on a mobile device like a phone or a tablet, but small price to pay. I think they're really good programs. So you download this stuff, and then you're good to go in terms of getting started with the programs. And I'm going to try to show you programs today, but that assumes I can get my thumb drive to work. Okay, so please let me know if you are getting ready to do all this stuff and you have any questions, right? I recognize for me it's day one of the semester. I don't know if you have classes Mondays as well, but you're trying to assimilate a whole lot of information from a whole lot of different classes, and it may be the case that by the time you get to this, you're like, wait, what'd she say to do, right? But if you remember nothing else, just know that you can go to the Open Proof website and you want to get the package, paper or paperless, associated with this bad boy. Some of you are going to get super excited. You're going to download the programs. You're going to start using them, yay. Some of you are going to be scared, but just figure out who you are. And if you're the latter, let's talk sooner rather than later. You are?
Jeremy.
Jeremy, what are you thinking?
Sorry, I haven't been to Pearson in a while.
No problem.
We can. I know you showed us the option to buy it online.
Yes.
Hard copy or digital.
But
that's in the bookstore as well.
It should be, yeah. We should have the hard copies, and they should be wrapped. Typically, if it's not a clear cellophane, it's like maybe it's a box and cellophane. In any case, yes, you should have the bookstore should have the book, and then these days in the book is a strip of paper, I think, and that's where you find your registration ID.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so we need the other two books besides that one that you showed us?
No, just this one.
Just that?
Yeah, so
Okay.
great question. So Jeremy, and correct me, Jeremy, if I'm wrong,
Yes.
you were asking, do we need these other animals?
The other two ones.
Nope,
Right?
just this guy.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, don't apologize. That's what we're here for. What else? You
I
are?
was just gonna say, I'm Evan.
Evan, what do you think?
They do have them at the bookstore. They're not wrapped, and they do have a little insert.
Oh, okay, all right, good. Thank you, Evan.
What's that? I think it's like 85.
Yes, I get you.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know. Well, and the thing is, like, believe it or not, as far as logic books go, given the fact that we have these really robust programs, other logic books have robust programs too. But if I'm not mistaken, they're limited licenses. These other texts are limited licenses, and they're more expensive. They're great texts. I mean, they're wonderful. I've used them, but I'm mindful of how expensive it is. You should also, if you want to check out financial support, the business office should be able to help you with that. Like, let's say you're waiting for a financial aid check or something, and you say, "Well, I can't afford to get the text." See me. We can talk. We can make a workaround until you can get the text. But also, check out financial aid. Who's somebody had? Yeah, you are.
I'm Vicky.
Vicky. Nice to meet you. I'll get to know everybody sooner rather than later, so just keep reminding me who you are. Vicky, what are you thinking?
I just want to ask, by any chance, if you were to rent the book, would it still come with that program?
Great.
For example, Chegg or something?
Oh, yeah, I think so. So the problem ultimately what you're paying for is what's known as access to what you're ultimately paying for is access to what's known as the grade grinder. So think about it this way, and then I'll come back to the cost thing. Let's talk, because we have some possible short-term workarounds. Think about it this way: let's say you use a web-based email server as opposed to I have an Apple machine. I use Messages, right? Or let's say you use a Windows-based machine. You might use Outlook. Outlook, Messages are programs, right, that grab mail off of a server, right, and send mail through a server. But even when you're on a web-based email server, you're still using the configuration of whatever that server is. It can be Hotmail or Yahoo or Gmail or whatever, right? What we do when we complete exercises using the programs that we're going to purchase is we save them, and then we have a special email program. That's effectively what it is. It's called Submit. And what it does is, and it'd be cool, I should see if I can do mirroring with my machine. In any event, what it is it's effectively an email program. It's called Submit. You open up the program, you attach the files that you want to send, and then you email those. You send those files to the grade grinder, this remote server at University of Chicago, and then within seconds you get a report back, right? So you're not seeing this. You don't have to purchase the textbook at the end of the day. Really, you're purchasing and even the programs, right? You're purchasing access, right? So let me just jump back here. So that said, Vicky, here's something to think about. If we go under class resources, I want to say Jeremy, maybe this was anyway, or Matthew, we were talking about this earlier. Yeah, so I just clicked on the link for the textbook. So this is the same digital version that you get if you buy the paperless package, right? I just post it so that you have access to it. Now, our Canvas site is private. It's set to private. That's only because there's material in here that's proprietary, and since the videos that I have, as well as since the videos that I have are public, I have them on my YouTube channel, and because other people will roam around Canvas courses, I don't want that stuff that I'm really not allowed to give out to be available to people, right? But I think this is a fair use instance. You should be able to access the textbook, right? No problem. Or let's suppose you're out and about, you've purchased what you need to purchase, but you don't have a copy of the book. Oh, I'll just jump on Canvas and grab the book, right? You can even, for the purpose of practicing, get from me copies of the programs. But again, when it's time for those e-exams, that's when you need to have purchased the package. So speaking, let's see. So it's a 620-page book, and oh no, it did load nicely. Okay, bear with me. I'm sure there's a faster way to do this.
Press the page over if you want to change.
Oh yeah, duh, I know that. I'm just gonna grab. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna do this because this will be a little bit faster. I want to show you a couple things. You gonna load up? Okay. And if that's gonna take forever, then let me just do this real quick. Well, yeah, but then here, let's just do this because I think ultimately this will just be faster for us. Okay, so no, go away. I don't need you. Okay. Yes, I anthropomorphize everything. All right, so the text, what you're getting with the digital book is the same thing as, the hard copy, right? The pagination's the same, all the rest of it. Okay, so here's something I want to share with you. The very first, let's see, am I right? Yeah. The very first section of the first chapter is going to give us our first opportunity to practice with the first program that we're going to use. There are, if I'm not mistaken, at the end of every section or the end of a cluster of sections, a heading that says you try it. And what's great about you try it is it walks you through step by step what you're going to do, right? So you're going to open up this program. Now you're going to either open up a file from within the program, or you're going to type something into the relevant window, blah, 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 right? So you'll see, for example, the program called Tarski's World, named after a mathematician, logician, Alfred Tarski, has a bunch of pre-given files. They want you to open up Wittgenstein's World and Wittgenstein's Sentences, also known as turn of the 20th century philosopher, early 20th century philosopher. So these are pre-given files. You do stuff, and then you're told to save the file a certain way. So there's a naming convention for each file type, and then you move on to the next thing, right? So once you get into the groove of how you use these programs, you'll understand in very short order the naming conventions. If you're like me, there are times when which for me is most of the time, you don't want to go through the directions and stuff. Like I didn't want to go through the directions on that, right? You just want to like mess around and stuff. Probably not a good idea because you then end up taking longer on the back end, right? But then there's like the other end of the extreme is my partner who will, like, if he gets a car, he won't leave the lot without reading the freaking manual. I mean, it's just it. I mean, who does that besides him? There's a balance, right? So yes, you should mess around and see what's what and just sort of learn by doing. We will do that a lot. But right at the beginning, just take a bit of time to, even though I know it's going to feel like a time suck, it's tedious, but get sort of up to speed on the programs. I'm sorry that we're not in a computer lab where you can be working as we're meeting, but it should be the case that we do enough practice together in class to where you have an idea of how this stuff works. Okay, so we got our textbook. We know that we got programs that we're going to use in relation to the book. We know that we are going to complete exercises for credit. We're going to complete exercises just for practice. We're going to complete some reading quizzes. Those are really just sort of go find it in the book. And then we also have in-class exams. And this is really just a skills-based course. So let me tell you what I mean by that. How many of you play a musical instrument? Anybody? So how awesome were you at the beginning? Were you pretty talented? Anybody pretty talented? You were, yeah, I believe it. I do. But even if you're Beethoven, right, you still have to like learn what notes are, and have to be able to write the notation, right? You have to be able to do stuff. And even if you didn't think you were super talented, rephrase. Suppose you didn't think you were super talented. You said, oh, well, I know I've got to practice, right? So musicianship it's a craft. It's a skill. What else? How many of you play sport? right? Do you get I finally got to a point where I don't believe that one 5-mile hike is going to get me buff, right? It probably, no, it doesn't. Oh, right? You got to work at it, right? So same with, your sport. In order to be good at your sport, you got to work at it. I mean, anything that you want to do well, you have to work at. What makes us frustrated about logic and philosophy more generally is we think, well, I'm logical. We think, well, I have views about the world and meaning of life and blah, 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 right? So you don't think that, we tend not to think that it's a skill. I mean, look, we can have kids without needing a license, right?
I think we need
It's sort of like, yeah, I've got reproductive organs. Sure, have a kid. Well, isn't it true if anybody does have kids, usually if they have more than one, after the first one, they're like, oh, okay, I get this a little bit better now. It's because you got better at it, right? So we don't do a very good job of realizing that even if you're a good thinker, even if you tend to be reasonable, logical, whatever you want to call it, you still have to practice at it, right? So that's what we do. That's what we spend our time doing. And remember, if I can do it, anybody can do it. Okay, so that's my pitch for a general reason to take the course. I know that some of you are computer science majors, and so you have a reason to take the course, which is, of course, a requirement, which is that it's a requirement. But there's also another good reason to take the course. You're going to get some sort of theoretical frameworks for thinking about the work that you do in computer science. I have in mind specifically like programming or coding, right? But any major, I think, don't we have some biology majors in here? No? Any social science majors? How about that? Physical science majors? No? Social science majors. But what else are you? What is everybody? Math major? Yeah, so this is right up your alley. But if you're not a math major, don't worry. Remember, if I can do it, anybody can do it. What majors do we have? We got math. We've got we've got math. What else? What's the major?
linguistics and computer science.
Look, again, right up your alley. You're going to love, for example, chapters 3, 4, 9, and 11. I think. Don't we know each other? There's something here that makes me think of. No. Okay. What's your name? Victor. Okay. Anybody else? What other majors do we have? Social scientists. What are you? Poli-sci, psychology. What are you? Poli-sci and econ. Yep. So the sort of strategic thinking that you need to be able to do in a number of facets of those majors is enhanced by this work. I mean, look, it's not like you're going to run through your daily life running derivations or constructing truth tables, right? I know you do it. I know you do it anyway, right? But it's more that the sort of workout that you're getting is going to find its way in terms of certain sharpness in terms of a certain sharpness in your thinking is part of the benefit of the course. What other majors? We got poli-sci and econ. What else? Vicky? Psychology. You are? Philosophy. And you are? Peter. Okay. So so let's say you're a philosophy major because you're thinking about law, which you may be thinking about, and you are Michael. You may be thinking about law as a poli-sci and econ major, right? This work is great training for pre-law, for your LSAT specifically. Anybody else? What other majors do we have? Nobody's willing to say? Yeah? Okay. All right, fair enough. Okay, so simple example of what I mean by the ways in which, yes, we are logical people, but we might not always be aware of kind of how it is that we use logic. Remember, I was trying to get a key to work, and I said, well, it's got to be one of these keys, and I had like 5. So it's this one, it's this one, it's this one, it's this one, or it's this one. And none of them worked, right? I did a process of elimination. None of them worked on this door. So then I made another assumption. I said, well, let me assume that the problem's with the door and not with the key. I'm going to go over to this other door and, right, one of the keys worked, right? So, we could structure the reasoning process in which I engage, and structure it, and then in such a way that we can go through the minute steps that I just would have glossed over because we tend to think very quickly. The minute steps that got me from the initial, it's one of these 5 keys, to, therefore these two, therefore the keys work here but not here, and maybe another therefore there's something wrong with this door or the lock, right? So I mean, we do this sort of thing all the time. What we're going to do is take at times a big picture view and at times a very microscopic view on the structures of our reasoning processes. Okay, so with that in mind, let me, so that we can start working together, let me find out who's who. And I think, like, meaningless, right? Which is to say, you might say, well, I know the word that she's using, but I don't understand the context in which she's using it, and so I'm not quite sure what we're talking about. But what I'm hoping to do after that is to give you some ways of starting to think about where we're headed this semester. So, first thing that I'd like to do is this. So we're going to we're going to build a system effectively. So each part of the system, the ultimate system, uses what comes before. So most of our work is going to be scaffolding, right? So what we do starting on effectively day 1, and what we do on day whatever our last day is together, where we're introducing and talking about new material, builds on previous material. So we're going to start out with the text, with the sort of the smallest parts of logic, and then build from there. And we'll spend time here and there focusing on some specific features of language or some specific features of reasoning that are important to work that you will do either continuing in philosophy or pretty much in any area where you study. Okay, so let me start with sentence types. Right, so we're going to deal with what are known as singular sentences. And eventually, we are going to deal with what are known as quantified sentences. And singular sentences can be, our text calls them atomic. I'm also going to call them simple. Or compound. And we need to define all this stuff, right? But this is the overview, right? Similarly, quantified sentences can be atomic or simple, or they can be compound. So let me give you an example of each. So an atomic sentence can be something like this. Walter is a dog. So an atomic sentence, or the simplest sentence that we deal with, involves a named entity, in this case Walter, and then what's predicated of Walter, right? And let me just throw this sentence into the system of notation that we're going to use, just so that when we come back to each other, you'll say, oh yeah, I remember this. We spend a lot of time, at least I hope we do, repeating ideas, because for very many of us, it's a sort of kind of consistent, it's the repetition or the sort of consistent immersion into these ideas that help us finally sort of unlock meaning And what I mean by that is stuff begins to make sense. We understand, and then we get a better idea thereby of how the version of the system that we're learning works. Okay, I'll have a little bit more to say about that in a moment. So here's the way that we will notate in terms of symbolic logic the sentence Walter is a dog. We take the predicate, dog, we capitalize the first letter, and then I'm going to assume that I'm getting all this on the video, and then in parentheses, in lowercase letters, we have the name Walter. Now, is that the only way that we can translate ordinary English into symbolic logic notation? No, it's not, but this is just the convention that our version of the system uses. Okay? Well, for example, somebody might decide that they prefer to do something like this, capital D for dog and lowercase w for Walter, right? Or in another version of the system that will be learning specifically what's known as propositional logic notation, we might just take W for the singular sentence, Walter is a dog, right? A compound sentence is a sentence that has at least one atomic sentence as its constituent and at least one what's known as a connective. Don't worry about that language now. I'm saying it, but we'll actually use it and learn it and know it as we go forward. So let me give you an example of a compound sentence. So a compound sentence could be, Walter is a dog, but Brett Michaels is not. In fact, Brett Michaels is a cat. We'll see that as we go forward. All right. So we have a compound sentence because we not only have the at least one atomic sentence, Walter is a dog, Brett Michaels is a dog, right? The is a dog is implicit here. But we also have what are known as connectives. We got the word but, and then we have the not, which is a negation. And in our version of the system, the notation we use for connectives, they're also called operators, is this. For the and, we use a caret, and for the not, we use a hook. So then we end up with the following. So dog, Walter, but it's not the case that dog, Brett, Michaels. Oops, sorry. One T. And I'm just going to use Brett instead of the whole name, Brett Michaels. I could have done the same with Walter because really it's Walter Westhaven, but we go by first names, right? So we got singular sentences, and guys, believe it or not, we're going to spend the more than really the first half of the course on the singular sentence. The singular sentence in its atomic or simple variety, and the singular sentence in its compound variety. In other words, we're going to understand not only the logical structure of a sentence, but then build out of the rules for that are involved in the logical structure of these sentences, ways to derive the conclusion of what's known as a valid argument. So by the time we get to chapter 8, we're going to be dealing with not just atomic sentences and not just compound sentences, but how we can assemble and dismantle those sentences by way of specific rules so that we can demonstrate that the conclusion of an argument is true. Now, I know some of the language that I'm using. Again, you might say, yeah, I know the word argument, I know the word demonstrate, but I don't understand the context, right, of this. Don't stress. You will. You'll get it. But this is kind of the really peculiarly cool feature of logic is that we're just talking about what I've said are singular sentences. What whole system of reasoning involved in singular sentences? That's cuckoo, right? But yeah, I mean, we start out with these itty bitty pieces and then we build. Then we get to what are known as quantified sentences. Again, simple or atomic and compound. I'll give you, again, an example of each. And you'll notice, I mean, my board work gets really bad really quickly. So if ever I write something that doesn't, Farsam's laughing as he's been through things like this with me before. Either my writing isn't legible, in which case you need to tell me, or even if it's legible, you might say, what goes with what? What is she doing, right? So for example, can you make out these two symbols and then how I've laid them out? I want Luke, right?
Yeah, it's just a question.
Sure, tell me.
So, it's like, so does that symbol, is that just for what? Or is
Yeah.
it for any
It's known as, great question, this symbol, the caret, is known as conjunction.
Okay.
And then this dude, or dudette, or whatever, I always anthropomorphize and gender everything, because that's just how I do it. This is called hook, or sorry, that's the name of the operator, sorry. This is negation. Yeah. Yeah, so of course. So, when you pick up any old logic textbook, you might see different symbolization for these operators, but it's just another version of the same language, effectively, right? All right, so quantified sentences. So here's an atomic quantified sentence. We can say everything is wonderful. Right? Now the question for us is, well, what's the domain of discourse? Right? Are we talking about everything in the universe? Are we talking about, everything in my life? And in other words, one of the things that we'll want to do as we go forward is talk about how logic allows us to effectively clarify sort of our ordinary discourse, because when we're notating, we are going to be specific about, as I just mentioned, the so-called domain of discourse, right? So everything is wonderful. And now if, I won't. Let me just give you the notation that we'll learn. I recognize that some folks over along this side of the room might not. Can you see where my hand is right now? Okay. So Victor?
I'll stand up.
And no. And behind Victor is JJ. So what I'm doing, guys, here, I'm just going to bring us over here. So everything is wonderful. Here's our notation. For every X, or for everything, the thing is wonderful. That's kind of boilerplate quantifier logic symbolization, right? But this is chapter 9.
Upside down A is for everything?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or is it just a variable, like you could put whatever you want?
Bingo. So depending on what textbook you pick up, you'll either have the upside down A, or sometimes you'll just have an X.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, great question. And Daniel, what are you thinking? Or were you just humming?
I'm just humming along.
Okay, well done. Elizabeth, what are you thinking?
What did you call it? The boilerplate?
Oh, just sort of a standard non-controversial notation.
Does the notation have the name?
Oh, sorry, this is known as the Universal Quantifier. Yeah. We'll get there. So everything is wonderful. Homer, what are you thinking?
You say universal quantifier.
Yes.
Are you making domain that you just said before equivalent to universe?
Well, that's the question, right? So if you and I know that the everything in question, right? So let's say there's this implicit understanding that when I say, everything's wonderful, maybe you and I are in conversation. You say, hey, Mia, how's it going? And I say, everything's wonderful, Homer, right? You and I understand from that context that the domain of discourse is presumably everything in my life, right? But, logic doesn't know from that. So one of the things that we want to do when we are engaged in moving from ordinary English sentences into eventually into quantifier logic is, what is that scope? Are we talking about everything in the universe? Are we talking about everything within, let's say, the class of things in everybody's lives or something like that? Does that make sense? Yeah. What do you think?
Follow up to what you just said. That means then did I have to ask you what is the domain of your everything?
Yes, in a word. For now, that's a good way to think about it. Yeah, but we'll find out, and this is why I love I have one program in mind, but this is why I love the programs that we're going to use, because we're going to see that. So basically, one of the programs looks like a chess or a checkerboard, and there are objects that we put on the board, and so our entire universe or the world, right? In this program is confined to whatever happens to be on the board. And so we'll get to see ways in which language is and is not explicit when it's vague or sometimes ambiguous, right? About, for example, the domain of discourse, right? So for example, how do we, so now suppose we want to talk about these and those. All these animals are dogs, but all those animals are cats. Well, from the way that I'm talking, those, right? And I'm pointing that I'm talking about two separate, right? But logic by itself doesn't know that. So the way that we notate is going to help us clarify the language. And so I find just my own experience with this stuff is that I can very easily, I'm a very slow thinker, I'm generally a very muddled thinker, and so doing this work in logic really helps me to be clearer, right? Some of you will say, oh, easy peasy, but you're just better at it already than I was and am. All right, so, and now let's take a look at a compound sentence. Suppose we say, all dogs are animals, and we'll see that this quantified sentence gets written in symbolic logic notation by way of a connective or an operator that we haven't yet learned, but it looks like this. For every x, open paren, if that x is a dog, then that x is an animal. Right. So that's it. That's our class. Now, I know that we're pretty much at time, so I won't go. I'll basically pick up where we will have left off today with how we work this into our reasoning process. But sorry, Jeremy, what are you thinking?
Sorry.
Don't apologize.
Part of that formula or
Universal X upside down.
no, I just can't. I can't really read it well. Does that say dog?
Oh yeah, dog,
X in parentheses.
arrow, animal, X in parentheses, close paren.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is where we'll pick up on Thursday. Let me know if you have any questions, problems, confusions. Yeah, Peter, what are you thinking?
Well, we have access to the video that you mentioned.
Yes. So what I do, hold on, let me go ahead and